There is actually a pretty good chance some of you have seen my videos before and had no idea it was me. For a while, I was posting almost every day on an account for a language learning app, and by the time I stopped working with them, I had made almost 1,000 videos for that one account, which still sounds kind of ridiculous when I say it out loud. But I wanted to talk about it because that whole experience taught me more about content, attention, and why people watch what they watch than honestly a lot of what I've learned in university. It also eventually led to the month where I made $42,800 as a full-time student, which I talked about in my last video. That video was more about the result, and this one is more about the part in the middle, the messier part, because it did not start with viral videos and it definitely did not start with big money. So this whole thing started early in April 2025. That's when I first got into this space and started making short form videos for apps. The first app I worked with was actually Pingo, and I still work with them now, but at the time I genuinely had no clue what I was doing. I didn't understand the algorithm. I didn't have some amazing strategy. I wasn't thinking about scaling or building a business or anything like that. I was mostly just trying things and seeing what happened. My first deal was around $500 in total, and I was posting one video a day, which at the time already felt like a lot. But I was excited because it was the first time I realized that companies would actually pay for this kind of content, so I kept going. I'd film something, post it, see how it did, then do it again the next day. And for the first couple of months, nothing about it was especially dramatic. It was just consistent work, a lot of trial and error, a lot of figuring things out as I went. Then in July 2025, I started working with another language learning app. I'm not going to say the name because the account now belongs to them, but that was the partnership that really changed everything for me. At first, it honestly didn't look that different from what I had already been doing. I was testing different ideas, trying new formats, changing hooks, changing delivery, just trying to make the content more interesting. And some videos did okay, most were just fine, like not bad, not amazing, no huge numbers, no crazy breakthrough, nothing like that. And I think that part is important because people usually only talk about the moment things blew up. They don't talk enough about the part before when you're just posting and learning and hoping that something eventually clicks. And honestly, I think this is the stage where most people quit, not when things are terrible, but when they're just average, when you're putting in effort, showing up, doing what you're supposed to do, and somehow still feeling like, okay, but is this actually going anywhere? I definitely had that phase. I was still in a university, still going to class, still trying to figure out what my future was going to look like. And part of me really thought this would probably stay a side thing, something helpful, something interesting, maybe a nice extra income stream, but not something that would seriously change my life. That's where my head was at, and then I found a format that changed everything. Because it was a language learning app, my first videos were pretty straightforward. I was explaining things, showing features, talking about the app in a more typical way. Then one day I tried something completely different. Instead of trying to sound smart or polished, I filmed myself struggling. Like genuinely struggling, trying to pronounce words, getting them wrong, getting frustrated, repeating them again, being dramatic about it, looking like I was one bad attempt away from losing it. And for some reason, people loved that. Those videos started doing way better than anything else I had made before. And that was such an important moment for me because it made me realize that people don't always connect with polished content. A lot of the time they connect with something that feels human, something emotional, something a little chaotic, something that they can see themselves in. People weren't necessarily watching because I was teaching perfectly, because I was not. They were watching because they wanted to see if I would finally get it right. And that changed the way I thought about content. Once that format started working, the account grew really fast. Videos started getting millions of views, and not just one random lucky post. I mean multiple videos again and again. So naturally, I leaned into it. What started as 1 video a day became 3, and then 5, and then eventually 7 videos a day, which sounds completely insane, and honestly, it kind of was. But once you find a format that works, it becomes much easier to create different versions of it. So you're not really starting from zero every single time. You're building on something that already has momentum. And over time, I ended up making almost 1,000 videos for that one account. And if someone had told me that in the beginning, I would not have believed them. Posting that much content really changes the way you see the internet. After a while, it stops feeling random. You start noticing patterns, you notice what makes people stop scrolling, what keeps them watching, what makes them comment, what makes something feel shareable, what kind of emotion makes people stay until the end. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons for me, which is virality is not as random as people think it is. Of course, there's some luck involved. There's always the luck, but there are also patterns. There are formats, emotions, and small details that work again and again. And once you start seeing those patterns, you stop posting blindly. You stop just hoping. You start making decisions with a lot more intention. At one point, as I said, I was posting 5 times a day, sometimes even 7. And when you combine that kind of volume with content that's consistently getting views, the numbers can get very big very quickly. That's what eventually led to the month where I made $42,800 as a student, which I talked about in my previous video. But that number didn't come out of nowhere. It came from months of testing things, making mistakes, changing formats, posting consistently, and slowly learning what people actually respond to. That's the part people usually don't see. They see the result and assume it happened fast. It really did not. To be honest, the biggest change for me wasn't even the money. I mean, obviously the money was huge, but the bigger shift was mental. Before all of this, I still thought I'd probably do what most students do, graduate, get a job, work my way up, the traditional path. This experience completely changed the way I see work, because once you realize that content can create that kind of leverage online, it becomes really hard to see the world the same way. You start understanding that there are other ways to build something for yourself, and that those can scale much faster than traditional route people usually push you toward. At the same time, I don't want to make this sound too neat or too glamorous, because it really is not. From the outside, this kind of work can look simple, but in reality, it takes a lot of consistency. You have to keep going even when you're tired. You have to post when you don't feel especially creative. You have to deal with videos flopping. You have to keep testing things that might go nowhere. And then you wake up the next day and do it again. That's the part people don't really talk about. And honestly, I think that's why most people never stay with it long enough to get good at it. But if you do stay with it, the upside is kind of crazy. So yeah, that's the real story of how I ended up making almost 1,000 videos for one app, and how that whole experience changed the way I think about content, money, and my future. It didn't start with big numbers. It started with a small deal, 1 video a day, and a lot of figuring things out as I went. Then one format clicked, the account took off, and everything sort of snowballed from there. I want to talk more about this side of the internet on this channel, content creation, online income, mindset shifts, what actually works, what people get wrong, all of it. So if that sounds like something you'd be into, subscribe. And in the next video, I want to break down how this whole model actually works, because it's very different from what most people think.